Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Aussie Ideas Man. This one is my trip to Fully Charged Live. Here's my copy of the brochure as you get in. I'm showing the front and the back. The front is there, and the back is the list of speeches on each day, on the Saturday and the Sunday. I only went on the Saturday, and I'm glad I missed the Sunday because it wasn't all that fantastic, and it would have been only the speeches to listen to if I'd have gone on the Sunday, because there wasn't all that much to see. You could see it inside an hour. Anyway, that's my introduction to the video that I'm making now. I look a bit funny holding this up in front of my camera on the laptop, but just couldn't think of any other way to uh, show that I had a brochure and had been there. So I'll put what few photos and videos I took. I don't like taking photos or videos, so there isn't much, and I'll make a few comments or text boxes on the way. We start with this photo on Merriweather Beach in Newcastle and our first stop after picking the car up at Newcastle Airport. This is my evaluation of the event in Sydney, first one in Australia for Fully Charged. I do like the site. They have some good articles and they do a good job of making videos. But I must say I was a little disappointed in the day that I went there. Fortunately, I decided that being a long way from Brisbane, where I live, I would make a holiday of it with my wife. And so we went down on the 8th. The event was on Saturday the 11th, and we came home on Monday the 13th, late in the evening. We flew down to Newcastle and we did a fair bit of holidaying in the Gosford region, where there are beautiful beaches, as you can see in the first photograph that my wife took of me. I don't know why I'm holding two oranges, but what the heck. The photograph is of Merriweather Beach in Newcastle. We just picked up the rental car, as you can see, in a Mercedes A250 there. And we were staying in Gosford, so we drove halfway to Sydney and stayed in a motel in Gosford. We were able to check out many of the beaches on the central coast of New South Wales. It's a good thing we had the holiday, because it would have been disappointing to fly down to Sydney just for the day and just go to the Fully Charged event. The other good thing about it was, from Gosford on the day, we took a train to Sydney, and if anybody has done that, you will know that it is a very scenic train ride. And I think the train ride there and back was probably more interesting than the Fully Charged event itself. I only took a few photos and took very little videos of the speeches, these little conference talks or whatever you have, where a couple of people say a few things on a stage and then they open it up to a few questions. What I found was I only went to possibly three of the things. I filmed two, didn't film the last, because they were Mickey Mouse. They were low level matters and they just weren't worth listening to. You get so much more from videos on YouTube than you do from those talk fests. It was a little disappointing. The other thing about it was the displays that were there were too heavily into selling chargers for cars. I thought Fully Charged was all about everything to do with electronics and not just cars, but there was almost nothing to do with home solar or anything else. It was just look at the MG4, the BYD 803, a lot of Tesla Model 3s that were owned by the clubs and other private people. It was pretty sparse when it came to total cars to see, but it was, as I said, heavily filled up with people showing chargers, home chargers for their cars that they could sell. Not enough variety in it. Fortunately, you can see from the first photo that we had beautiful weather just about the whole time we were down there in the Gosford region. This Formula race car was a little bit interesting for a few seconds. This is a lot more interesting if you're an Australian, because this is Savic Motors, or motorcycles. This is a pre-production model, and they should be producing them very soon. It's an all-electric motorcycle. It should be very interesting. Unfortunately, at being almost 70, it's a bit too late for me to enjoy one. I'll stop at the Carman gear because I really like this one. These photos are of electric car conversions, but this Carman gear in its colour and its body is just beautiful.
I was sitting way back.
That's the MG4 in fully charged live. That's all right.
Yes.
The MG4 was unveiled, and as everybody went in for the first time after lining up in a very, very long line to get in before it opened, the first thing they did was unveil this MG4. So I tried to have a quick look at it. But then I took a few steps back, past a couple of other exhibits, and there was another MG4 that everybody was sitting in looking at. So there's another MG4 besides the red one. So this is sitting inside the MG4. Nothing great. This is the start of Fully Charged Live in Sydney, and there was a big lineup, but they sort of thin out going through here. MG4 there, BYD Atto 3s out the back there.
The infrastructure of the developments in solar and storage, and those are all critically important.
This is Robert Llewellyn. He's the #1 guy on Fully Charged, the videos, and I didn't take too much of this talk fest because it was pretty boring. But I also used my fairly cheap phone. I'm not an iPhone or an expensive Samsung phone user. I just have a reasonably priced Oppo. And indoors, this phone went light and dark a little bit. And as I zoomed in, because I was at the back, it got a bit grainy. But other than that, it doesn't go long, so persevere.
And we've built our whole culture and society using fossil fuels, and it's been an incredible beneficial resource for the human race. And that we have to acknowledge that in a way. We have to see that is part of our history. But it would be an amazing legacy to leave our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, that we reached a turning point where we went, there are some downsides to relying on a cheap and abundant source of energy that requires being burnt in combustion engines that are kind of inefficient.
I'll play one of the little talk fests that they had almost entirely. Each lasted just under half an hour, and I'll just play it so that you can see how Mickey Mouse it was. This is the talk fest that I was more interested in, and it's in an outdoor tent. And the reason I was interested in it is because the man on the right is Sam Evans, known as the Electric Viking, a guy who puts out multiple videos per week and is probably the #1 authority in Australia on all things electric. I shook his hand and said that I was a newcomer to the game. He was quite cordial, but we disagree on things. We didn't say anything about it, just kept it friendly and brief.
Only spot with a 3-phase outlet you can plug in, and one of the reasons that I'm looking at the Redo E-Tech Megane when it comes out is it's 22 kilowatt AC charging and my cone is 7, so plugged into an AC 3-phase outlet it charges 3 times faster. 1 hour at Butchera pub instead of 3. Mind you, the pub owner might not like it.
Tell everyone how that would affect their car charging at home.
Yeah, so for car charging at home, you will have a single phase connection. Actually, if you go to my own website, not my website, evchoice.com.au, I have the Renew magazine articles that I write, and one of them is on charging at home and what have you. So more detail there, but the basics are a home power connection is in the 40 or 64 amps single phase. So the best you can get for a home charger for 90% or more, unless you've got 3-phase at home, is 7 kilowatts or 32 amps. But that will charge you overnight. 9 hours, my cone is done.
9 hours.
9 hours.
Yes.
If you're on the road and there's no DC charger, that's where 22 comes in, because it's 3 times 7, all 3 phases. And that means I can get 3 hours charge if my cone is 22, which it doesn't. But I would with a E-Tech Megane.
What do you recommend people should do for home charging? Should they use, for the average person, what would you say?
If you're doing decent kilometres, like 50, 100 in a day, put in a proper charger. In fact, I always say, think about putting in a proper charger, mainly because it's a lot more convenient to just unplug, roll it up around the lead and drive off. The one day that you needed that portable charger on the road that you've left plugged into the power point at home is the one day you'll be cursing. It's like leaving a spare tyre at home. So even if you're using a power point to charge your car, buy a second portable charger. And I actually have a second portable charger that can do anything from 1.6 kilowatts right up to 3-phase 22 if the car will take that. And that's what I use when I'm doing a long distance trip.
Awesome. Robert, what are your 5 main criteria for buying an EV?
I think the first one is most people have got 2 cars. So do you need to get your first car to have 500 kilometre range, or could it be your second car that has 80k, 120k range? There was a little IMEV that came out here in Australia very early on, and whilst it's not great for Sydney to Melbourne, perfect around Sydney.
I'm here to say I actually own an IMEV as well at the moment, and I find it more convenient beetling around town with its small turning circle and small size.
Yeah, and that's exactly it, spot on. So selecting the right vehicle for your job. So if you have a second car and you're doing trips away in that other car, replace your small car. So you're in the game already. You've got skin in the game and you've bought an EV. As times change, as we see things range extend, prices come down, there'll be a lot more people moving into that market. So I guess the first thing I'd say is pick the car you need, not the one you think you need. That's the first step.
What about features? Like what features should people consider, do you think?
So if someone's doing, say, Canberra to Sydney regularly, you'd want fast charging, or different types of charging, different battery sizes. That's a factor. But if it's local, it's not. So like Bryce said, comes down to, has it got a hatch? Do you like the dash? All those normal stuff that you'd pick in a normal car are factors that come into play, and the battery's not really a factor.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is when you look at an electric car, almost always the interior dimensions are bigger than the equivalent gasoline car of the same size. So say for example, look at the interior of a Tesla Model Y, compare that to an equivalently sized petrol car, diesel car, right? It's significantly bigger inside. So
it's too hard to buy an EV. It's too, there seems to be a circus act where hoops are held up and you've got to sort of go, like Tesla's a really good example. If you're not very good online, it's probably hard to buy a Tesla. So for a lot of people, that might be a hurdle. And it seems to me like Hyundai, it's a lottery. It needs to be better. I don't know what we can do to make it better, but it would be good if it was.
don't get me started on the lottery, I hate that. What the hell, man, that's irritating. There is some available right now though, Ioniq 5s, Ioniq 6s, I think in Australia right now. I think that it's become a bit easier.
I'll also say just don't be scared to look at the used market. Used market for EVs, it's just the same as the used market for regular cars. It's out there. There are plenty of used EVs that you can go look at.
Perfect. One more question here.
Yes, Sam. Why aren't there more Japanese cars? Like, why aren't Toyota?
You know.
Why?
There's not more Japanese cars because guys, if you want me for another 3 hours, listen to me answer this question, stay here, and you know what? I feel very sorry for the Japanese economy, the Japanese people. I think they're in big trouble, and hubris, people have told me, some of you have told me, I've asked you guys the same question, why they're not doing it. You know what, it's like money, it's a drug, they're used to it. I don't know, there's so many reasons, but got to finish up, we're over time. Thank you so much for coming everyone, you're awesome.
I may as well say the goodbye now. So at the end of this, I'll splice it and put at the end. That's it from me. Bye for now and stay safe.